Healing my soul with a Big Mama Thornton. Who is she and what's that connected to my work and healing my voice and my soul? How did she come in the fall? What messages and downloads do I have to share with you today? Well, this is going to be a deep dive. It's going to be deep dive into the sacred brain programs. And I'm going to show you a new page on my website and talk about PTSD, OCD, childhood trauma, and ADHD, and how I would love to integrate this with a leader in facilitating training, new jobs, and why I do believe these sacred programs will benefit humanology, human super consciousness. Yes, I'm coining that. We'll now see who picks it up on mainstream as a sort of as a word to use, but not understanding truly what it requires to become super conscious, and not just super conscious in the sense of having these incredible healing abilities, but having the humbleness to honor them. So you have to go through dark nights of the soul. You have to go through many ego deaths to get to that super consciousness. I'm not talking about the world online of egotism and manipulation that has sort of seeped into the culture. So, if you're interested in brain health, if you're interested in higher consciousness, if you're interested in also how do you work with your ancestors? Do you know them? Do you know any of them? And how can they lead you into to more of your authentic self? So you just walk in your skin a little bit more peaceful, a little bit more knowing of where you've come from and where you're going. For me, I talk about this in the video. So what happened is the intro and the ending I was going to sing. And this particular mic and my system here, I can't belt out anything without it vibrating back. So I was using a professional camera that I had bought in 2020. And I bought this camera, I used it almost every day in my healing private practice. And it was an incredible tool. I stuck it in the corner of my healing room, and only a few clients I filmed. And I didn't film all their sessions, but I got legal, obviously permission to do so. I was going to make a documentary about healing generational trauma. And specifically, I was filming Agent Confusion. If you have followed my channel in the last year, I've spoken about him being a karmic, a very serious one in my bloodline that has come in and has taught me a lot, honestly, about darkness and the programming of darkness. Um, so, what happened when I started to study the film? Because being from the theater arts, being a professional dancer, actor, singer, we study ourselves, we study our work. It is how we become masterful. It's not a job. It is just something that's ingrained in you. I remember performing a piece in Pittsburgh roughly 10 years ago, a song I wrote. Need to get the water in today. And it was about 4 or 5 years later, I was at this event. This woman came up and she's like, you wrote that song, that song. And I was like, yeah, thank you. And she went on to talk about it. That's what really stirs me in life, to be original, to be unique, to be absolutely who I am. And that's what my teaching has always been, even in the trauma coaching world. And as a teacher and a coach, it is so exciting to have people heal childhood trauma because they come into so many innate qualities and strengths that they didn't even know were possible inside of them. So I hope that as I continue to move forward and speak my story and share my songs, it inspires people to do the work, do the heavy work, do the I'm not going to tiptoe around the work, the ego deaths, because it will elevate you and you carry on your soul, obviously, in soul database. But I actually do believe you carry on not just the energetic blueprint of who you are, but your vocal blueprint. And so, alchemizing the voice has been such a huge journey for me, obviously, with my childhood trauma story. But I will also say that there's an innate gift that I have in hearing people lie within their voice. I mean, you can see it in their auric field sometimes, but Some people cloak really, really well, incredible veils of deception. They're masterful at deception, right? And but the voice is not so easy to veil and to mask. And it's really important, I think, as we move forward with all the technology happening, that we really understand the sacredness of somebody's voice, that it is their unique imprint of information. And why does certain voices penetrate through and certain voices penetrate backwards? Why do certain voices deplete us? Why do certain voices make us nervous? Why do certain voices calm us down and focus us? So many layers. And that's, when you're learning the sacred brain protocols, you're actually in vocal therapy class. Because we don't just start chanting, we're reconstructing all of the blocks within the jaw and the tightness in the tongue and all of that, and breath work with sound. And it's really wonderful when people start to do this work, because guess what? They're going inside. They're not sitting across from somebody that's telling them a story that has no reverence to their whole DNA and inner compass. When it comes from your internal work of medical meditations, I believe there is a stronger imprint, a stronger hold, and then you find the meaning behind it, not the person that you're listening to, because clearly they can be projecting. And if there's anything I've learned in the last 2 years of a lot of spiritual warfare that it's done, is I've learned that we really do need to be careful about who we're listening to. And we really need to be careful if you are in the healing arts, especially with trauma and mental therapy. Encourage your clients. It was a prerequisite in the last couple of years, it was a prerequisite. It wasn't always. I learned this through seeing how trauma clients have broken auric fields. They have a lot of acidic body. They have a lot to do. They are a target online. They should not be online at all, unless it's for a class, unless they're taking my breathwork for leadership class on my YouTube channel, or breathwork for stress and trauma, which, by the way, goes hand in hand with this video. That's just the beginning stages. I was sitting across from somebody, a leader, and giving him some examples of the ADHD, which is on the page that I'm going to show you in this video. And, you know, it, just understanding, didn't really understand the breath, the mouth placement, the tension, lifting all the time. It was just a really interesting observation. Beautiful, beautiful soul. But there was a lot of stuff that he didn't understand about this temple. That, I thought, wow, like the possibilities here are endless. So, healing my soul with Big Mama Thornton, I was singing, and then I went to copy it on the computer. And the first thing that happened, and I want to share this, because when you get engaged with a coach and a teacher and you're really working on stuff and you're really tapping into your team, whether that's Archangel Michael, Jesus Christ, Yahshua, if you name it, Yahshua, Holy Spirit, all these energies are a part of my team. As well as my higher conscious ancestors, because they're not all higher conscious. So, calling them in. Well, Big Mama Thornton came in the fall. I talk about that. But so I was singing, some things, and I put this in, and obviously haven't worked with the camera for a while, so I wasn't really looking into the camera. It kind of was weird. And so I did it again, and then all of a sudden I looked at the date. I was like, 12/31, 1979. I got the camera in 2020. It's dated accurately. Used the camera over 100 times, if not more. Everything else I filmed in the last, I was like, so Big Mama Thornton is connected to my ancestors, to my mom and dad, so in some way, somehow. And then I sat with that date. Well, that was the Christmas my father lost his job, and pretty much the whole family changed energetically. The next year is when my mom would be possessed, be taken over, and start to attack the light, the unconditional love, which was me. And then I thought, okay, I was 7. There's something significant here. And then I did the numerology on it. 33. Well, Heather Ann Ferri equals 33, 11, 11, 11. Okay. Are we closing out the ancestral job that I was assigned to do? And I got yes. Now I hand over everything to the higher realm, spiritual courts to handle. I don't have to handle that. It was wild. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but it does make sense when you're working with and you're really consistent about being loyal to working with your ancestral team. So I'm not using this footage, but I wanted to share that story because I did the middle part of the video you're going to see, I did, 5 days ago, but this whole week's been about Big Mama Thornton. And obviously there's been things releasing as I'm working specifically on a creative project. And thinking about the women that came in, I talk about Big Mama Thornton and what I learned about her. Um, I talk a little bit about how Whitney Houston came in last year, but I'm going to start with that. I didn't follow Whitney Houston. I listened to her music in the 80s a little bit, but I wasn't a Whitney Houston follower. I was a Michael Jackson follower. I was absolutely obsessed with Michael Jackson. And everybody knew it. I mean, I wore his clothes. I did all his dances. It was just that everybody knew that. So, but Whitney Houston came onto my feed too in the fall with a lot of other, specifically Black women artists. They were not all singers, but I'm notating 2 of them today. And the video that came on my feed was her funeral when Kevin Costner was speaking for her, speaking about her. And as a trauma expert, I found the dialogue very interesting. I got the sense that there was a deep love between those 2 energies. I also was surprised by when he was telling the stories of how she got casted in their film together. I'm losing the name of it. If you know it, put it in the comments below. Guard. I'm losing it. I should know it. I did watch it like last week or the week before. Um, it's famous. Oh, it's embarrassing. Anyway, what I got from his storytelling, that I got that he was loyal to her as a friend. There was a true friendship of respect. He was not going to do that film without her being casted in it. And he would wait years before she was the leading role in that film. That says a lot. Everybody wants their fame and their money, and they'll do anything to throw somebody under a bus, like literally and figuratively. So I was like, and then he talked about the audition process. And what shocked me, and it's not a judgment on her by any means. I mean, I've gone through layers and layers of masks and traumas. It was just an eye-opening reminder for me. It's actually a teaching tool for me. She was so insecure. um, wanting to be liked. Am I liked? Will they like me? Type of dialogue. It really showed the wounded girl, the roots of her. And I didn't sit and watch the video and then like judge her. I then took that information and said, what is it that my ancestors want me to take in to learn from this? And that's the same with Big Mama Thornton. You know, all morning, you ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time. I mean, I was just like listening to her wail. And she didn't want me to wail in this video as we're working on dynamics in some of the stuff that I'm working on right now. She wanted me to use the lover's voice that I use so much in my trauma work with private clients, because the lover's voice is something that a lot of these women lacked in their life. They didn't have the parents or the family or the business partner or the lover or the friend. So the lover's whisper didn't really exist in their realm. And so this message, as we talk today, is about self-love. It takes a lot of self-love to turn off all the voices that you're hearing online, to hire a healer or a trauma expert, and to go into that classroom and start to hear your voice. So that when you're out in the world and you hear the tone of voice and the way people are talking, you start to get a sense of what you're around. I'm doing a lot of podcast interviews, and some people bring out the inner child in me and I just want to play. Some people, I go into this deep, calm voice. And then some people, I'm on guard. I'm pushing the words out. And a lot of times I'll review my interviews because I'm a director, producer, choreographer, master of all realms. So I really love to look at everything. When people hire me, they're shocked at how much I bring to the table. It's you know, one of my clients listed like 20 jobs I did for her. You know, it's quite masterful at this point, and I do give myself credit for that. So, and a lot of times the subtle mastery is sometimes over beginners' heads. They don't get it, you know, and that's okay. I'm not for everybody, that's for sure. Um, the brain protocols, I don't want to continue to, I will work with certain clients privately. I work with certain higher conscious people privately, but those need to start being in a systematic system where we're training the new job market. So I'm looking for somebody with financial skills, business ethics, somebody I can come in and be a master teacher, because what I do is I start to customize these programs, and there's a lot more material than what's just on the website. I just wanted to show that it's very different than what you're hearing on mainstream. You know, if somebody is telling you you can fix something in 7 minutes, you can fix something in 10 minutes, maybe you can. Maybe you can heal something in 7 minutes or 10 minutes. But if you're measuring stuff by time, you're not working with God. You're not working with the Divine Mother. Nobody should give you a timetable on your journey in your life because they don't know. And if they pretend to know, they are egotistical. And there's a lot of egotistical, arrogant, traumatized people preaching. I think that's one of the gifts that has allowed me to have patience through the spiritual warfare and healing these ancestral bloodline curses, traumas, patterns, and becoming aware fully that we're not repeating them moving forward. So I needed to understand the players that be full hand, and I do. Let's just say, for example, somebody says, in 2 weeks, you're going to get $20,000. It's coming in 2 weeks. And you hear that on a whatever. And so you're focusing on and you're focusing on, but what if God doesn't want that $20,000 to come from the source that that person said? What if God says, I think you need to learn a little bit more about this, and I've got $500,000 waiting for a source that you're not even aware of yet. And it's going to be so much easier and so much higher conscious beneficial for you. Constantly be aware of your connection to God, Goddess, to Jesus, Holy Spirit. If you give up your power and connection to somebody online that's giving you timetables, you are giving up to projections and possibly demonic energies. I'm a teacher at the end of the day. I'm a healer and I'm a teacher. That's why I have 2 free playlists that are beginner. It's fascinating to talk about the breath and have these leaders that know nothing about the breath. And you may say, well, why do I need to learn about it? Well, I'm not telling you why you need to learn about it. I'm just saying, in order to live longer, in order to know your psychology, in order to be advanced, you need to understand your breath. And if you don't want to agree with that, that's fine. But it's really interesting to see some of what's being taught online. My goal in this video is to manifest leaders, higher conscious leaders, who are tired of the same programming being dished out. So we can implement this into elementary school, high school, and to new mental health advancement therapists. Let's coin that. Let's patent it. Let's legalize it. Let's train it. Let's get new jobs in the market that do something. I'm not saying that the mental health doesn't do something. This is a turning point. We have to be realistic at the stats that we're seeing. We have to say, I need those leaders that say we need something not only new because it's new to make money, but we need something that's old and ancient from somebody who's lived and has experiences of traumas and spiritual traumas, comes from an ancestral lineage that had a lot of slavery, trafficking, domestic violence. And we need to flip this quickly. 3-6 months of really specialized work, not analytical work, not talking work. That's why I love Sanskrit for so many benefits of brain development. So we're not just talking about rewiring these labels, we're also talking about advancement in the brain. So anyone would benefit from them, even just the discipline of doing them, because it would be the discipline of learning more about yourself. I'm going to see if there's anything else I'm supposed to add to this intro of the video. Voices. Thank you, Big Mama. Big Mama had a big voice. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Yeah. And I talk about how she came in. But here's the thing. When you're training in medical meditations, and they're medical because they have PubMed research and nobody is paying attention to that or aware of it at this time. So I'm bringing it to the table. When you're working with voices, we work with 3 different types of voices. For the most part, we work with chanting. We work with chanting because chanting is a rewiring, a releasing, a reprogramming. And it is like vocal class. And in some ways, it really brings, because of my theater, I really brought out the inner child in a lot of people doing this work that can be very, very devastating to remember sexual abuse, to have to shake out endless trauma, to have to feel that neglect and abandonment. Then you have the lover's whisper. Not so easy for a lot of women to do in such a harsh, masculine, shadow masculine society, specifically in America. And that's the whisper that we would hope that our mothers would speak to us. My mother did the opposite. She screamed rage and negativity all day long. So I know my stuff works. And also, so the lover's whisper is how we want to speak to children and animals. And when we raise our voice or the voice changes a little bit, then they know, oh, something's up here. I need to pay attention. The lover's whisper is how you speak to those you love. It's also how you speak to your lover. There's a texture to it. So within a lot of the meditation programs, not necessarily ones online, doing couple therapy to me is all about breath work and vocal work and energy work. And I've had a lot of people who were in the lane of couple therapy work that would refer private trauma clients to me. And what I learned is the couple therapy work is really missing some very important keys. And we might want to teach that to our high school students. We might also want to teach about respecting the temple, about courtship again, about what it is, not just on the outside to be a god and goddess, but on the inside. Psychology, behavioral patterns. So I got to see, I didn't work a lot in that field, but a bit. I submitted myself for an interesting podcast because I really love the woman. We've connected personally. And I'm okay if I don't fit with her. She has a dog channel. But I started to realize I have done a lot of healing work with dogs and cats. And probably that would have been a much more fulfilling career, to be honest with you. But I think my career in trauma, there were a lot of reasons why was for me to get the toolkit I needed to heal. It was also for me to heal my anger towards the medical system who had over medicated me from age 9 to 16 because I had a lot of medical people in my classroom. And a lot of them had really very little education on the sciences I work with. So they had to humble themselves. They had to humble themselves. And that was a beautiful healing for me. And I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, I've had a lot of, and I realized when I was submitting for this podcast, because I just wanted to talk about, I'm concerned about the animals and water. I'm thinking if I can't get to the people, I want to get to the animals. Let's please stop giving our animals plastic water. Please, please. I mean, I see it at the parks all day long. I'm like, no. But then I realized one of the things I did when I was healing the dogs and the cats is I would chant. I would use my voice. I would use the lover's voice in a chant. And so that comes from Big Mama today. And I'm grateful for that reminder. So I'm going to leave you with that. Enjoy the video. I would love to know what resonates, what light bulb moments you have. This is a video about voice, lineage, and the moment Big Mama Thornton appeared in my life. Enjoy. How does your voice matter? How do you use your voice? Do you know who Big Mama Thornton is? Well, I'm going to share a little bit about how she came into my realm in September of 2025. Trauma. Do you know anybody that has it? And super consciousness. Well, I'm coining that word. We'll see who starts to buzz that word around the internet. So, this deep download comes from me and actually Big Mama Thornton. See, I didn't know anything about her. And as a mystic, as a healer, I was going through some spiritual warfare last year, to say the least. And in September, she came through. What does that mean? That means as soon as I turned on the computer, she came up and her songs. And I was like, who's this woman? What's the mystery behind her? And so I started listening to her. I'm a deep diver. I go deep into the work that I do, the roots. We got to get to the roots of generational healing trauma. We got to get to the roots of why our water is toxic. We've got to get to the roots. So I was listening to her and I was like, wow, she is a powerhouse. Like, her voice is amazing. But she also was singing about a lot of things that I've had to heal, not only within my own soul database, but within the ancestral bloodline that I chose to incarnate in this life, a bloodline of specifically Black women, um, with a lot of different traumas, from slavery to trafficking to domestic violence. And so I researched her story. You can only go by what they write about. And I've learned through a lot of the women that I channeled last year, including my own past lives, that some of it's questionable. And I think that's the beautiful part about you doing your own inner work, your discernment. I would be careful listening to influencers talking about trauma or their perceptions of it if they've never had it. There's something to be said about, listening to those that have walked through hell and have come out blissful, knowing their inner child. They might have some tools in their toolkit. It's just something that I would really be cautious of. So when I read about her story, there was a lot of parallels within this lineage, having a child and losing it to the system at a teenage years, losing a parent, being on her own, being a Black woman in a time where, let's just face it, wasn't easy. So there wasn't a lot of caregiving and nurturing to her. She was a go-getter. She used her voice and she got out there, and there were a lot of obstacles. Have there been obstacles with you and your voice within your family system, within your work system, within your relationships? Because one of the things that I do as a healer is we start to disentangle, release a lot of those programs to come into, this is such a popular term online, authentic voice. What does that mean? Only you're going to know. I've had an incredible journey with the voice. And so I do believe that I'm an alchemist and have something to share with the voice and releasing darkness to come into light. And as you research, read my books and follow my videos, my podcast interviews, and hire me, whether it's a speaker or into the private healing, or whether it's group coaching, it's really important to always keep discernment. Of course, a healer is going to trigger you. I would be really cautious if they're not. I would be cautious because that's the only way you get to the roots. So yeah, she came through and she was coming in as a messenger, as a mirror, as a teacher, as a warning. And only I can decipher those internal messages. So it's really important as you advance yourself that you make sure you're really listening to yourself and those that you are connected to. Me, it's the Holy Spirit, it's the Divine Mother. It's obviously, Yahshua, some know as Jesus, Mother Mary, Father Joseph, Anna, Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael. I mean, I'm getting the whole team every day, all day. I'm checking in with them now. They are my team, my business team. They move things forward. And really, that's in the healing process of our programs and products that I have. We're teaching you to do that. So, really channeling Big Mama Thornton helped me sort of understand some things about this particular bloodline and why I came into this particular bloodline and chose to go through some really traumatic, horrific things to then come into my authentic voice, my light, my real understanding of creativity that isn't based on what's just popular online, right? It's what's popular to those that matter the most to me, actually. My angelic team, my ancestors, the Holy Spirit. They're my biggest critics. So when I show up for this video and I pray beforehand, it's because I'm always trying to do my best to align with my higher self. So when I read about her life, I could feel the weight she was carrying. She had struggled with alcoholism. I had struggled with sugar addiction for many years. She had struggled, in my interpretation and feeling of her, of loneliness, of not really having the experiences of a nurturing family, not really having the experiences of a nurturing partner, not really having the experiences of a nurturing business partner. And she had a lot of lows and then highs and then lows and then highs. And it was like always in survival mode. Hard worker. I commend her for all of the music she wrote. We've heard about it so often. She was not paid for her gifts in the way that I believe she deserved. But there's something else that her and my ancestors and everyone that's working through me right now wanted me to get as I'm working on creative projects is as an artist, we do share our stories, our hardships, our traumas, and it is important to see those and to feel those to understand how we become an alchemist, what is it that allows us? What is it that allows me? Here I am, I'm 8 years old, and my mother's coming into my bedroom in the morning and putting her hands around my throat and screaming horrific things to me that no mother should say to her daughter. And this is a repetition. So when you look at the picture on my book cover, trance, my mom was in a trance, transcending victim. To be honest with you, I never really played the victim card. She did. which is very common when we really study narcissists and psychopaths, to goddess, a word that I never heard of until my father passed away in 2022. Now, how did I heal the voice, which is the soul, which is all of my temple, my brain damage? How did I heal all that? Well, that's the journey less traveled. And it was a long journey. Early on, I remember just getting out a sentence, I would choke up. I would have a rock in my throat. I would have sore throats, being over medicated from age 9 to 16. Is any of this common to you? Are you listening to influencers and copying their statements? Are you listening to people and taking in their psychology without knowing if they're lying? If they have any real substance to be speaking about the topics they're talking about? Are you giving your power away? I have given my power away because, like a Big Mama and some of the other ancestrals, there were different addictions of wanting to help everybody. That's no longer in my wiring. Addictions to, I guess, in some senses, overextend, overgive, not in my wiring now. But also the addictions, I think, to want to fit in somewhere because there was no family. Yes, in every story, there are these highlights of one or two people coming in that probably weren't in their bloodline. When I think about Whitney Houston, who came in last year, when I think about Harriet Tubman, obviously, but they had no solid foundation. I had no solid foundation. So how did I rebuild my body that I'm muscular, more muscular than I've ever been, more flexible than I've ever been, without very little effort because all of the trauma is out? You can have this too. And you can have it much, much faster working with me than what I had to go through. Because what I had to go through was very specific assignments with the Divine Mother to learn a lot of different things, honestly, about darkness, because I'm light. And darkness is right here on Mother Earth right now. And so we can't avoid it. We can't pretend it's not there. But I can hear it now. I can see it in the aura now. And there's a lot more I'm going to teach about that moving forward. But what I want to share with you today is that if you are a solo act, if you haven't been able to fit in with your family or fit in with tribes, you can fit in with your angels. You can fit in with your higher conscious ancestors, because not all of them are higher conscious. You can fit in with the Holy Spirit, with Jesus, Yahshua, whatever you want to name that particular energy. Mother Mary is a powerful healer and completely assisted me through darkness to light. And they will receive you where you're at, whether you're an abuser or you've been abused. But you have to come humbly and honestly to them. You're going to have to learn to surrender. So, Big Mama didn't have a lot of protection. She, I think, in some ways had a lot of armor and masks when I studied her body language and her weight gain, weight loss, weight gain, weight loss, which I've worked with a lot of women. And I'm not saying that to make you feel uncomfortable. I was shocked. This video came on that I filmed. I never posted it last year, I believe. I was shocked at how much weight I had in my lower chakras. Now I know now that I was being spiritually attacked in a big warfare. But I, I was like, I was like, wow, never have I had that much weight. And that wasn't my weight to be carrying. But guess what I learned? I learned to transmute it. I learned so much about boundaries. And I understand now some of my protocols with my trauma clients was not only accurate, but should be taught with people who are working with trauma clients. And one of them is they should not be online while they're doing their trauma work. They are a target. And it is our job as healers and protect them while they're in that sacred work. Because when the auric field is cut off, these predators can come in, and they are coming in. So if you would like to hire me to come in to talk about, I mean, really talk about protection on many layers. And I'm not talking about how strong you are. No, I'm talking about the psychic war that's going on with our children. I absolutely believe if you're a child 16 below should really not be online unless you're taking a course, an education course. And parents need to wake up. So she, she was a solo, and what I admire about her is her resilience. That is a huge gift that me and my bloodline have. And she just kept following her passion, using her voice. But as I was channeling and working with Big Mama Thornton for this video, I wanted to share that as I was working on some creative projects and studying her words, sometimes as artists, we do share certain words that are important to represent the storyline of what's really happening in reality. But I looked through a library of her work. And what we saw together was that the trauma had shaped her language. And in some ways, her pain was sometimes being bounded by her voice. Even though she was powerful, she was battling these battles. And because she had no trauma healing, in some ways, her words and language and choice wasn't as constructive as if it would have been if she had gone through some of the healing protocols. And she really wants this, and she really wants women to hear this today. Men too. But I got to tell you, I'm here to clean up the abused, repressed, feminine. Um, Specifically within this bloodline, and I do it through healing thyself and thy voice. This is something that's difficult when you're healing abuse. Predators teach us to speak in spells, spells of survival, spells of warning, spells of pain we never asked for. That's why when you are listening to somebody, you are downloading information. Be careful what you're downloading. Be careful what you're listening to. There are a lot of false prophets online, and you're going to have to figure that out. But if you have traumas, emotional pain, if you have patterns, you want to make sure you are working with somebody that has walked the walk and talks the talk. And I'm one of those people. I want to show you something that I put on my website, and I want to talk about it, and then I'm going to finish. Okay, one more message about Big Mama's voice. Some of her words sometimes were shaped by the wounds she lived through, but they were repeating because there was no outlet for her to heal. I could feel in places where, yes, there can be a piece about slavery and chains and men, but at some point she never got to break through them. And that's where my work begins. And there's no coincidence of us preparing this video and then what I put on my website. Because I'm honoring her by not repeating the spell. I'm honoring her by rewriting what she didn't get to rewrite. I'm honoring her by letting her voice awaken mine, not in suffering, but in sovereignty. So today I'm going to share the healing work that helped me clear deep generational pain. Now, I work with so many sciences. I've mastered about 8. And there's all this controversy about labels and talking to people about this. I absolutely had PTSD and generational PTSD, and it's not a joke. And if you've never had it, I would not talk about it. You're very blessed. Be thankful. And I know exactly quicker what needs to happen for people who have it to not just get those traumas out of their whole system, but to regulate the nervous system, to continue to regulate it as problems will occur. We're on Mother Earth. So there is a training that has to happen because when you have PTSD, severe generational PTSD, it's in the roots, it's deep. I've never really labeled myself. I didn't go on disability for it. I didn't, but I was aware that I had it. I lived with it. And you do not want to follow or listen to people that pretend that it doesn't exist or that you can just flip a switch. One of the reasons why, and I've had a lot of healings, I've had some miracle healings, the reasons why I've gone through having to learn all these sciences is because I am a master healer, miracle healer. But with that said, you may not receive that miracle healing right away because Holy Spirit needs you to psychologically understand what you're really healing and why, so you don't repeat actions. You know, if I had received the healing that I wanted to heal years ago, I would not be able to read a book a day. There was a point where I could only read a paragraph with a headache. I would not have written and created what I'm creating right now. I would not have experienced the inner child of playfulness and fun and true inner peace that's not just words. And you don't need to show it online. A lot of people online, you know, send them positive energy, but you don't know who they are. The one great thing when clients fly in to work with me for 3 days, 10 days is they see me every day. They feel it. They know it. They know I practice what I speak about. When I say the label OCD, I didn't constantly say I had OCD, but I had OCD. When you live in an environment where somebody's trying to take your life out and they're your parent, and you live in that environment for 10 years, they're trying to control you and you're trying to control something because you have no control. So when you're dealing with OCD, you're dealing with two different psychologies when it comes to a predator and an abuser. And the OCD brain protocol, the sacred brain protocols I work with, actually shows this was, I mean, a lot of these websites of alternative research, they've been taken off the internet. You come to your own conclusions with that. But what I can say is this was ranked #1 in helping people with severe OCD who have been medicated for 30 years, who have tried everything from talk therapy, you name it, because you're not talking the story out with these sacred brain protocols. You're not talking the language that you grew up with. You're not even saying love or with the positive affirmations because they don't even register to you yet. And then you wonder, why can't I manifest this in? I'm absolutely in love with the sacred brain programs. I'm only listing 4 on my website that I have truly mastered, and I'm only giving cliff notes just to show it's different. There is so much more of a library. It's extensive. And this work is not something that I necessarily want to do on a regular basis. This work I want to do with leaders and people who own facilities, who care about the community and want to see not only you upgrade your brain and advance it, advance the IQ. That's what these labels do in these programs, by the way. But come into super consciousness as a superhuman being that is of light and not darkness. Because from what I've seen in the last 20 years, with all the mental programs, I see a lot of darkness still in society. Maybe it's time to bring in a divine feminine to the table who has lived experience and who's passionate and knows that if we invest in humanology, the science of humans, to advance them, mental advancement, we can create different jobs. We can create different higher conscious relationships. We can create heaven on earth. But these are sacred. And I'm glad I kept them and my experiences with them, student, teacher. And I'm not sure where I'm going with them, but I'm presenting them a little bit more because people don't understand this because it's not popular online. Who is buying online? So doing the OCD brain protocol is actually very challenging. And it would be great for any human being to do it, to advance themselves. These are just labels. When somebody came in with their, sheets of this is what I have that, from the Amen Clinic or from years I have, they're great because they help me map out. Okay, they've help me map out. What haven't they done? Oh, they haven't done these brain protocols, and every time it changes, it uplifts them. They find Jesus, Yahshua. They find the Holy Spirit without me having to even speak it. Now, is it partly because they're in a higher frequency master healer like myself? Of course. And that's why I'm not online all the time. Because my energy is sacred. And yours can be too. OCD. The childhood abuse psyche program is magical because even if you don't have childhood abuse, you might have some ancestrally, but it actually awakens the magic in the inner child that's dormant. And I don't know any adult that didn't come to me in the 18 years of a private practice that had repressed some innate ability with that inner child. And now I'm tapping into my inner child every day. She's so creative. She's so advanced. And I lived in a household where I didn't speak a word. I was in my basement studio all day. I learned to discipline. I learned to alchemize severe pain and trauma. I didn't fit into the public school systems. I was bullied a lot by not only my mom, I was bullied at school. I was always bullied. Jealousy is in the program of darkness. And so if you've been around a lot of jealousy or you have a lot of jealousy, the first step is to be very clear and admit it, recognize it. So I want to show you what I redid this page. I was really proud that I was capable of doing that on my own. This is the Sacred Brain programs on my website. Okay. The kitchen. I have so many stories and programs around the kitchen because of my experiences in the kitchen as a child and my ancestors. Every room holds 1,000 stories. Through meditation, we peel away the masks we wore as children. And I don't just mean meditation and sitting quietly. I mean what you're going to see below. Because all my clients did all of that stuff, including myself, before these sacred brain programs came to me. Rediscovering the gifts hidden beneath the pain. What room in your house holds your intuitive truth? For me, it is the kitchen. That's why I started doing short videos singing in the kitchen. I'm visualizing a completely different kitchen for myself. And I'm excited about it. Sacred trauma protocols for mental advancement. So this is good for anybody that wants to build intuition, telepathic abilities, and the nervous system mastery. But this is, I think, the future for one of 8 sciences for healing trauma, completely out of your DNA, original blueprint. Wouldn't it be amazing to make sure our children have this so that when they do fall in love and have children, that those children don't have to carry on traumas? That's how we stop this. This is very valuable. It takes discipline to do this. And it takes really self-mastery. Masters continue to learn. As soon as you understand that, masters are always learning something new. When somebody tells you they know it all, I would take note and be concerned. So many of the sacred brain protocols I teach today were once protected and hidden, and I've been protecting them in my work. Over 3,000 years ago, during an invasion in India, these teachings went underground. The masters knew the truth. A liberated mind cannot be controlled. We can talk many lectures on this, and we could talk about new ways of protection. So the techniques were buried to protect humanity. The lineage survived because the student always found the master. So I'm not everybody's private teacher. I'm a master. And I don't say that with however way you interpret that, that's just truth. If you're not capable of doing the assignments and doing the, it's just not going to work. Action is required. That's how you change behavioral patterns, energetic patterns. So those who read my books, follow my podcast interviews, or study my YouTube channel begin to understand not only the depth of my own childhood trauma. Yeah, you want to follow somebody who's kind of been through it, but the ancestral bloodline I incarnated to heal. That comes from Big Mama Thornton. I completed obviously all 4 brain programs: PTSD, OCD, childhood abuse, and ADHD. I'm talking about ADHD in a different light. And I don't label myself these things, but these programs were amazing. And sometimes I pull out a meditation here and a meditation there for myself. And I love to do it. It's like food for my mind and soul. I now teach the medical, mystical, and neurological magic behind each one, not manipulation. Oh, we have a lot of systems online teaching something that I think deals with manipulation. And that's a whole lecture on itself. These are not just healing tools. This is a mind advancement technology. It's capable. This was written. It was capable of producing sages, seers, healers, masters of the mental realms. The white magic, not the dark that I've been experiencing with the influencers online in the last couple years. White magic, angelic. Why these programs work? Well, they work because I'm an example of them. My clients are an example of them. My clients don't just, get a better life. It's consistent, long-term. They have a toolkit. And when problems arise, and they will, they pull out that toolkit. They know how to use it quickly. I use the word medical because there's a lot of actual medical research that has been buried from somebody who took these sacred brain protocols years ago. He was in the psychiatry world in California, and he did not teach them to many people, but he researched them within his own private clients. So there's a lot of PubMed research. He's one of the people that advanced Satanama into prevention of Alzheimer's, which is one of the most important meditations for our children to learn. Everybody, when you look at Alzheimer's, dementia, I mean, it's just valuable in so many ways. And in the ways that I teach it, I teach children how to creatively start creating with it. I teach people vocal training by the pitch they use. If you have blocks in chakra 4, your pitch is going to be at this pitch. So we're not just chanting when you're working with me with sacred brain protocols. If you have blockages in chakra 1, we're going to get to those low notes for you. If you have chakras, we're going to get to those high notes for you. That's the advancement of working with somebody that is a master and experienced. It's not a one size fits all ever, to be honest with you. You always tune in. I always change the tune in depending on where a person's at, and do basic breath work. But these are the 4. And I just notated, if you press on, some PubMed research for those that like science. These are the basics. Now, this is for PTSD. This is for OCD. this is for childhood trauma, and this is for ADHD. But when somebody comes to me, and let's say they're labeled ADHD, they actually may need childhood trauma. They may need one from here, one from here, one from here. That's the customization of working with a master teacher. That's how advanced. You're not going to get that anywhere else. These have not done any harm to anyone. They've only advanced people. That's all I've seen. Unless somebody, and I usually within 3 or 4 sessions could tell if somebody is not going to be a good student because they want to come in with excuses or not do the homework, then I disconnect the coaching program. I can't teach somebody how to work with a master teacher. And I gained this from my dancing career. And I can honestly say my parents, blue collar people, they did the right thing. I definitely channeled into the theater arts to master it and learned about private coaching. It was an honor and a privilege to be able to have private coaching. And I will give my mom credit for this. She would give me the check to give to my teacher. So I saw what that check was, and I saw what I was paying that teacher. And I knew my dad worked hard, and I honored my dad's hard work and hard labor so that I could take that private lesson. You better believe I did my homework. I've worked with poor people that you would be shocked at what they paid me. You'd think, how did they find that money? They found it because they were ready to work. I've worked with extremely wealthy people. It all is self-mastery. And so this creative process came from the creative arts of choreographing, of writing, of being in show business, which is what I'm working on now. Some of my own creative projects that bring me joy. So, this is something that I'm not sure what's going to happen. I know it needs to be moved into communities. It needs to be used, but I am patiently going to wait with my team to see how that is. I'm detached from that. I'm detached from the how. And if it's not, I'll just carry these with me and continue to do them. Like, I am so detached, which is a beautiful thing. But I want people to understand that these exist. Maybe you have PTSD and you're somebody that's wants to get the veterans involved with this, or you want your clinic to get involved with this. That's really where we want to go. We want to start working with people that are working with these issues every day. Because I'm not going to be working with these issues every day. Spirit, Holy Spirit, they have a whole other agenda. I'm not sure what the word is for me, but I can teach a facility or somebody else these and move them forward. And once again, it's not about the labels. It's about not only advancing the mind, but connecting people to their higher selves, light. So I'm very proud I did this with Big Mama Thornton. And so I'm just going to finish with saying, if you're interested in super consciousness and moving some of this forward, you can contact me. This will carry on, not just in this life, but the next, and maybe the next and the next. And I'm just going to finish with something I sang at the end, a message that we wanted to leave today, a simple lesson for you. Thank you so much for joining the channel, Heather Ann Ferri. You know how to find me and contact me. And I send you nothing but blessings. The lesson today is simple. When women heal their brains, their voice becomes an instrument of truth. I love you, Big Mama Thornton. I am so grateful that I got to learn about your story, hear your voice, and I'm honored that we were able to write a song together. You as an angel, and me here on Mother Earth. And in divine timing, we'll share that song together. Blessings to you.